we have a lot of different labs throughout the United States that we work with partners on to bring, if they want to try something out, if they have a new business model or they have some new devices or they have some new software, we invite them into what we call our 5G labs. And depending on what vertical you're in, we actually have different labs.
I wanted to catch up with you, before we did this, about like 5 minutes before I'm doing this interview, I get a message from Adam and he says, hey, his title is not CTO anymore. He's now EVP, President, Global Network and Technology. And I was like, that's exciting. That sounds like a cool title. And I was just curious, from the last time we talked, I think about 2 years ago to now, how has your role progressed and how has things changed?
Well, I mean, the title, I'm still doing the same job, right? But the title, we just made a few org changes kind of to simplify some things. So I relinquished the title to the person who's actually going to run really my real planning hardcore tech area. So I just gave that title up to him. I mean, my job still is exactly the same. But a lot has changed since we last talked. I think we talked quite a bit before COVID, and so many things have happened technology-wise and in society, and around the world, and we just keep taking, new things keep popping up every day. So it's a vastly different industry and world since we last talked, actually.
Yes, we met in a simpler time.
Yes, it was a much simpler time.
Yeah. And actually, one thing I wanted to catch you up with, because it's been so long, you gave this piece of advice about time management, up your time into like a pie chart. And I took that quote and went around the world and like injected it into one of my talks. And I was like, Kyle does this. And so I don't know if you know that, but it happened.
Oh, good. Oh, cool.
And I've gotten so much positive.
Funny? You have? Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, for me, because I still use that, and that's actually what helped me we changed our org a little bit. And I found that I wasn't spending some time on some important things that I felt I needed to and not giving it the right amount of, I just wasn't given, I couldn't put the time aside to work on it like I wanted to. And that resulted in a lot of why we did this, the org change. So now I've come up with my plan on how my time is going to go, and I think the new structure will support it. So I actually, I use that quite a bit in practice as well.
Excellent. Now, can you just give me like the quick overview of that for people who haven't heard it?
Yeah, so I'm always, all the time I'm looking at where am I spending my time on any given day, and I keep track of it, right? So am I spending most of my time internally with just working with my people? Am I spending my time outside working with partners and, and vendors? Am I with customers? Like, where is my time allocated to? And what I do before that, I think about where do I think the optimal mix of my time is, right? Because it's a mix of everything. And what do I think that should be? And then as I go through days, I look at how I'm really doing it, and then I make adjustments as I go. But sometimes, unfortunately, what happens is there's not enough hours in the day, and then you need to readjust, and you look at, okay, where am I going to spend my time, or what do I need to do at my organization, or what do I need to do otherwise, so I can get back to the area that I think I need to be at. Absolutely, and for me, it's been a lot about what I've been learning. So I guess when I met you, this was more of like a hobby, the podcast. Now it's my full-time job, and we've got about 11 people. So it's like turned into this like big thing, and it's super exciting. But so I've been learning. So as I'm talking to people like you and other great leaders, I'm also going through the growth of my business. And so I'm implementing some of this information and trying it and getting some real experience with it. And your time management stuff always rings in my head. In fact, I actually have a recurring event in my calendar that fires off every 3 months to make sure that I'm spending time correctly. Oh, well, listen, I mean, it's worked for me. And you can put your own kind of wrap around it, how you want to use it, but especially congratulations. I've looked at your website, and you continue to get more and more, content on there, and that's great. Now you have more folks working for you. Now you're helping, you have an organization that now you have responsibility where people are working for you, and you have to feel that responsibility because they have livelihoods on the line as well. And, you're trying to grow your business, and for you then, you're the CEO of this company, so you really have to watch where you're going to spend your time. And unfortunately, some of the time you probably find right now where before it was fun and you could spend maybe more time in the fun parts. Now there's bits and pieces right now probably that aren't so fun, but you need to spend time on them. And, that's good. It's driving you some rigor for you.
Yeah, it's motivation to grow the company farther so I can take those tasks I don't enjoy doing and offload them into a new role.
You can do that too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So one thing I was excited to talk about, I just learned about this, but Verizon decided to make all calls to Ukraine free.
Yes, absolutely. We do that quite a bit, Joel. So like when our customers are having times of angst, or a lot of times when there's like natural disasters or a tornado comes through somewhere, or there's some forest fires or hurricane or things like that, we tend to give free calling. So it gives people one less thing to have to worry about when they're dealing with a time of crisis. So it's something we do quite often.
It's been amazing how the world has responded to this whole thing. I saw somebody tweeted at Elon Musk and they were like, hey, we need Starlink. And he literally got them Starlink, I think, within 72 hours. And then you guys are making calls free. It's just like, it's very empowering. I've got a team member and a good friend. I've worked with him for like 10 years, who's actually like in Kiev. And
right.
So we email back and forth like every single day. And he just says it's like an action movie. He goes, it's quite honestly crazy. It feels like an action movie, and every day is just entirely different.
Well, you see the things on the news, and it's really upsetting. You see all the people that have to leave their country, and all the little kids, and you see these bombs and people being killed, and seems just such a waste of life, or I'm not sure exactly what, frankly, but we do what we can in terms of our customers in the country there, because Verizon is a worldwide company. We have services in over 145 countries around the world, and of course, some of our customers have operations in the Ukraine, Kiev, and so we are supporting them as best we can while there's a war going on there. So we're very, very anxious about security, and you see a lot of things going on about cyber attacks and other folks picking up, attacking now Russia and other places, and so there's a lot of activity going on cyber-wise. So we're really on high alert to make sure everything that's going on in our networks is good, and we're not being attacked, or bad things are going on inside our network. So that's something that's top of mind at the moment.
So is that just you keeping your CISO close, or?
Oh, well, we have a CISO. We have a large cyber group here that makes sure everything's, we're not being attacked, et cetera. Or if we are attacked, or if we see issues in the cyber world, we're able to respond accordingly and keep our networks and customers safe. So, but this just raises it just heightens the risk that's out there as people take up their computers to do things. So something that we're keeping our eye on, and really our hearts go out to everybody in the Ukraine, and hopefully something happens here that this stops soon.
Yeah, and this weekend, like my pastor actually addressed it, and rarely do they address things that are like happening in society, right? Mm-hmm. And the takeaway that I got from that message was, do what you can where you're at. So like a lot of people want to do something huge and some big superlative, but it's really just like wherever you're at in life right now, whatever your means are, whatever your positioning is, just do like a little something. And if we get billions of people to do a little something, it'll make a huge difference. So
I think that's really good advice. I mean, I think there was Gandhi, I think at some point he said, think globally, but act locally. So if you can do, you could do lots and lots of little things, help out. So I think that's really good advice from you, Pastor.
So I am a Verizon customer. I have been for at least a decade. And I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm in Tennessee now. So I was in Florida the first time we talked. We moved to Tennessee. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, this little like UW thing popped up next to the 5G on my phone. And it started going like way faster. And I was just curious, like, what is that
So that is probably you are seeing our C-band deployment, what we call our C-band deployment. So for those folks who aren't like totally into the wireless industry, when the industry started decades ago, there was a small kind of thin sliver of spectrum that was allocated for companies to build cell phone networks out of. And then as time went on, though, more and more people started using the devices until such time as where at one point there was maybe 10 people in a 50-mile radius area that might have had a phone in the back of their car, to now everybody has them and they're using a lot more data and a lot more bandwidth. So over time, the government's put out more bandwidth, and we've always been so you can add capacity by adding more spectrum. And there was an auction just recently we called the C-band auction, which we won a lot of spectrum in. And basically we were able to more than double the amount of spectrum in one fell swoop than we had in the whole 30 years before in something we call sub-6 spectrum. So what does that really mean, all that gobbledygook? It means your phone can support a lot more capability and a lot more speeds. And what we're doing is not only does it give you more capability on your mobile phone, now we're also starting to offer fixed wireless access, so broadband to consumers' homes, as a potential competitor to, say, the cable folks. So it opens up a lot more business for us, but the capability is astounding. If you did a speed test when you're doing that, you probably got over 300 megabits a second or even more, depending on where you were. So that's the kind of speeds that we think are also going to unlock people's creativity on what you can do with your mobile phone. So the platform we're building has so much more capability than, say, even LTE, and way more than the 3G technology. It'll allow developers and innovators to come up with new ways to use this platform, to come up with even more new and cool user experiences for us consumers. So just that you saw that makes me really happy, because we're in the really early days of deploying this. We already cover 100 million people, but we're aggressively building out the network day after day after day, so we can cover everybody at some point.
No, it's awesome. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, kind of. I'm an hour outside of Nashville, to give you an example. And so it's a more rural area. And the interesting thing is, everybody had waited 15 years to get fiber internet, and they got it last year. And so we just bought the home a few months ago. So that was a huge selling point for them. We have fiber internet now. Absolutely. And I came out here and gigabit internet speed. And I thought about it, and I said, when these late adopters, right, to internet, when they're buying this technology and integrating it, they're buying newer, better technology than what's in my town, because my previous town that had it for 30 years. Right.
No, that's true. And so that's why we're excited about what we're doing here with C-band and another spectrum swath called millimeter wave that even gets crazier speeds. We're getting 3 to 5 gigabits a second on a mobile phone in these kind of areas. But those are for more dense urban kind of places, because it doesn't carry as far as the C-band. But that's our whole goal. The new technology that we have, we can deploy ubiquitously and over wide swath of the country, and give people choice in terms of how they use their broadband. So we're just at the early days of it. But now we're finally getting after it. People used to ask me back in the days of LTE, probably you were just a youngin' then, as they might say in Tennessee. But back then DSL was kind of the big broadband, and people said, well, LTE is pretty good. Why don't you start marketing it? The problem was we didn't have enough spectrum, and the technology wasn't quite as robust as it is now. But now, because we have the spectrum and more robust technology, that we can get something called more bits per hertz, we can actually do this for folks now, and it's easy setup. Boom, you're on. The other thing that's important about it is, a lot of people just want to buy broadband now. they're not necessarily interested in getting either the telephony portion of a bundle and or linear TV, because everybody has their own, they have their own things that they subscribe to, and that seems to be more and more of a thing. So people buying just a la carte broadband is really something that we see continuing to grow, and I think we're positioning ourselves in a good spot to really help folks have choice.
Yeah, I followed Jim Gaffigan, a comedian.
Yeah, he's funny.
Online.
Yeah.
He did this post like 2 weeks ago. He says, "I have a business idea. We should bundle all the streaming apps together and call it cable."
Well, you know what's funny? I mean, it is funny. But if you remember back in the day when cable, you had paid television, there wasn't like a lot of commercials on it. There was none, right? And now you're paying, plus you see commercials endlessly as well. And I don't watch a ton of TV, but my kids have subscriptions to a lot of the things, and I find myself using the subscriptions more than linear when I do watch, just because I can watch what I want when I want it, and I can pause it and I can stop it and all these kind of things. So, listen, I'm behind in this regard. I get it, because, I spend most of my time working or doing other stuff. But but it's really interesting how it's evolving.
Oh yeah, I've got the young kids, right? So they like their shows, and it's amazing to see how all the contracts work, where this network has seasons 1 through 5. This network has like seasons 6 through 10, and all the licensing and everything. And you're right to the commercials. I just noticed that because I got the like the Peacock one, so I could watch the Super Bowl and the Olympics and stuff.
Right.
And they do different tiers. Like it's like how much commercial you want. You want a lot of commercial, you're $3.99, and then even at like the highest paid tier, they still do commercials, but the way that they like justify it is we're just going to advertise other shows on our network. So they'll still do like a 10-minute or a 10-second thing or whatnot.
Right. No, it's but that's that part of the industry. That's what they're always going to look to do. Like how do they get more eyeballs? How do they get more advertising dollars for what they're doing? How do they slice it up? But clearly that's the trend, right? People do move off of linear, and we see that just going to continue to go. And by the way, mobility, right? So a lot of people want to watch their stuff when they're mobile too now, just not sit in front of a TV. Or the other interesting thing that I always find is now, there'll be 4 different, when the kids are home from college, there's 4 people in there and everybody's watching something different on their iPad or their computer or something else. So it's interesting how things are changing.
I did have a 5G question for you. I don't know if it's acceptable or not, so we'll just see how it goes. Uh-huh. Since last time we talked, there was, 5G came out. I think one of the reasons why you came on the show was you were announcing that there was some like the first town in Texas or some state was getting 5G. It was some big thing that we were excited about, but the internet had their conspiracy theories and whatnot about 5G, and I laughed a little bit at it because I understand like the electromagnetic spectrum and whatnot, and like I have pulled up that Google image search of electromagnetic spectrum to show people stuff so that they can have a good understanding of like where the sun is and like where microwaves are and all of this. Yep. But I was curious, what were your like initial thoughts when that came about?
Oh, well, I mean, I know clearly I know the science of this stuff, right? So there was when that first came out, there was a lot of noise, and then there was the kind of conspiracy theory that 5G caused COVID as well, which was a whole nother kind of odd thing, right? But listen, people are entitled to their thoughts, but I mean, I just always point people back to the science of it all, and if you really want to understand it, you can go onto the FCC websites and you can learn, a lot more. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of science behind all this. And, just make yourself aware of what really the science is all about. And obviously you have, because you understand the difference between sun and, low band frequencies and what the differences are. So, there's a ton of science out there on the safety of all this. And I just, if you have any doubts or anything, I just say go read that on the FCC has a really good site that you can look this information up on.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's not brand new science. This has been around. We've been using this for a long time. Yeah,
a long time. Yeah.
So Right now, what's going on in your world? What are you talking about with your peers? What are hot topics going on up at your level?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, one big thing is you've seen a lot about ransomware. That is, I think, if you go around and you talk to different CTOs and different companies, that's top of mind. Making sure that you have the right, policies in place. You have the right technology in place to make sure that you can deal with some of these. The big thing right now, a lot of it is having people come back to work. So now it seems like things are settling down a little bit, and currently in Verizon, actually starting today, we're encouraging folks to come back into the office who are in the office in the March timeframe to start kind of practicing coming back to work, if you will, right? So we call it work forward, and start figuring out how people can work in a hybrid environment, right? And it's going to take some practice, because now as the proliferation of video, video meetings, things like Blue Jeans, and people got used to working in that environment, now having a mixed mode environment where some people might be in the office and in a meeting room and others will be on a video chat. How does that all work? And, I found it interesting when everybody was on Blue Jeans calls, there was certain democracy to meetings, because you had, everybody had a little chicklet and, people got used to interacting in that way and looking at everybody. And, I thought from my perspective, the meetings were very efficient and on time, almost to a fault, because you could fit more meetings in, because you can end exactly at, 3:59 and be on your next call at 4:00, right? So I think we all just kind of fit more and more meetings in, which I'm not sure was the best. There is something to be said about walking from meeting room to meeting room and, chatting with somebody, right? So, and I think we're going to get back to that, but there's a lot of work we're going on right now to try and make sure that when folks come back, they have the best experience. And, we can optimize this kind of hybrid mode of working that we're anticipating is going to be the norm, frankly, going forward.
Yeah, and as you say that, chaining meetings together and things of that nature, there's so many. It's, for me personally, it's been such an evolution about how I think about that statement, right? Like when I was just an engineer, just doing engineer stuff, I thought about it differently than when I was an executive. Then when I think about it even differently when I get to go and, meet past guests and see them in their offices and see how, what does it look like running a 50 or 100,000 person company. And they're definitely it's, I guess to articulate this the best, it's so interesting to me how most of the things that run our economy are conversations between humans.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. I mean, that's, leadership, leadership matters, right? And how people think and view things and internalize things, and then how they make decisions. I mean, let's go back to Ukraine and what's going on over there. I mean, that's a case study, and, trying to figure out what certain people are thinking here and there, right? And that goes on in the business world every day. What are motivations, and how do you perceive them, and how do you react to them? And honestly, in a COVID world, you kind of lose some of that interaction where you can gain insight, because I kind of like to manage it a lot by walking around too. Like I just like to go and stop in somebody and see them in the lunchroom, or go see them in their office, and and talk about things. And there's something about a human interaction that I think you get more feedback and feeling about what's really going on than if you're just staring at the screen. So I'm really happy that COVID is starting to come down a little bit, and then our folks are going to start coming back into the office, and we can start getting that human interaction again. Because I also think that's where the serendipity happens, right? A lot of the good ideas and a lot of the things we work on are more, there's a lot of serendipity, just the water cooler discussion and getting ideas, where in a Blue Jeans world and in a Zoom world, everything is so, you set the meetings up and they go for X amount of time and they're all structured. And I think there's something to be said about like unstructured time and just chatting with people.
Oh, 100%. I was talking with Harry, the CIO over at Zoom, about this there's this thing that we have as humans, like we can feel each other's energy when and it sounds like it sounds silly at some point, but you can definitely feel someone's energy in the room. Like if you and I had this exact same conversation in person together and like across the table from each other, we would walk away feeling like we knew each other much better than just this digital one. And so that's the magic sauce that we haven't been able to even really isolate, because it's like, it's not your posture, it's not necessarily the rendering, there's just something there. And I look forward to watching technology attempt to figure out what that is, and I think it'll teach us a lot about ourselves.
Oh, I think you're going to see some of it. I've already seen some really cool tech that some in the VR world that brings a lot of different technologies together to try and do just that. I don't know if it's going to succeed or not, but there are a lot of people working on that kind of thing. We'll see what happens. For me right now, though, I like we're going to try this balance of hybrid work where you have the opportunity to work from home sometimes and be on calls on video calls, but also be in the office sometimes. And so we'll try and strike a balance of kind of efficiency, but also that serendipity and having people still interact with each other, and then give people a little bit of flexibility in their daily lives. And so I think we learned a lot from COVID, and I think there's good things that came out of it that we can incorporate into how we work going forward. And we're gonna try that out, and we'll see where it goes. Kind of a big experiment at the moment for everybody.
I know. Luckily in technology, that was a lot less foreign to us, because so many of technology projects you'll have a team or so remote, and so we had different skills, or I've done work from home before, and that's how I learned to handle like work from home depression, because if you just switch from office to home and you just sit in the same spot, you'll start to get depressed.
Right.
I mean, I haven't found the person who doesn't.
Right.
But
right.
You have to learn how to like move rooms or like go to Starbucks, and you have to learn how to make your schedule set up so that you're still getting that human interaction. And I love it. Like, the ultra wideband and such. I just tell my wife, I was like, I want to know, but like, don't tell me, because I'm going to ask Kyle. Like, Google it. And I'm like, I know, but you can Google the answer to like so many things. I like to just have the question and then text the person I know that's like the smartest in that area,
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So let's see. The other point I make on that thing too for us has been, there's a lot of focus on coming back to the office, but more than half my people never, they don't work in the office, right? So they were out working and all during COVID to make sure we could keep our networks up, and you have sales channels, and so and all that stuff is coming back to more normal too. And so across the board, it's just going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. It's really an interesting kind of it's nothing that we've ever witnessed before, and see how we kind of rotate out of the COVID and into the next version of work, if you will. So that's what we're thinking about a lot here.
Want to get people into the office and get them to start working on 6G.
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring that up. Even before we had 5G set out, there was people talking about 6G. I'm really, 6G will, there will be a 6G, but it's yet to be determined what kind of technologies come together to actually make that a thing. Right now, 5G is incredible. It gives us so much capability that we're going to be able to build and make a platform for people to just make new experiences on. And the other thing that you might want to think about when you talk about 6G, typically these Gs last for about a decade or so, right? So it takes that amount of time to kind of develop all the new technologies that go into a next one. Because to make a G, you need a significant amount of new capabilities. And it isn't just one thing ever. It's a whole bunch. You need radios, you need kind of chipset technology, you need a whole bunch of things to come together. So before you really start seeing a 6G, I'd say you're probably going to be out a decade or so.
So who gets to name the Gs? Like who decides that?
Yeah, it's largely standards bodies, and at some point, some people rally around the term. Because telecom is to make it all hum, all of the technology needs to be built on a standard. And then to have the standard, everybody needs to agree on the standard. So lots of different people from lots of different companies all across the world come together, and start, what is the new technology that you could bring to bear, and all these standards bodies then standardize the tech. So then everybody has the same blueprint from which they can build things. And that's why your phone will work in, you go over to Europe or you go over to Asia and your device will work. If everybody just kind of did their own thing, then you wouldn't have interoperability. So standardization is important, but those groups who come up with these standards, they're typically the ones who decide, okay, this is a G, and they'll start working on the technology for it.
So I asked around to some people. I was like, "Hey, I'm talking to Kyle again. Do you have any questions for him?" And one of the questions I got was about how they do the Gs and if they'll ever change it. Like Apple went to Roman numerals randomly at 10. And so do you think that they're going to ever change it, or did it start out at like 1G, 2G?
Here's what's funny, because the G stands for generation, right? Mm-hmm. So the 1G was nobody even called it a 1G. It was just, cellular. And then the G started coming around more when you got to 2G, because then it's like the second generation of the technology, and then the third generation, and then the fourth. Right, so now we're up to the 5th G. Apple does it because of marketing purposes. The industry ends on this path because, or Google for that matter, when they're naming Android, right? They went a different way. They do in desserts. But listen, it's a bunch of nerds running this stuff, and they'll probably stay with 6G because it makes sense to them. But who knows? Maybe they'll come up with something at some other point. Who knows?
We're doing some remodeling, and my contractor guy, he called me a nerd, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to be like offensive." I was like, "Dude, that doesn't. You call me a geek, you call me a nerd. It's like I love technology. It's what I do."
It. Yeah, it is. If you are, you are. It used to be kind of, I guess, back in the day, not so cool. But hey, I'm a total nerd.
So I heard that you guys are doing something with an Audi car. Do you know about that?
Oh yeah. Well, listen, once again. When you go into the 5G and the platforms we're building, now you have, like you experienced, if you have much more bandwidth wirelessly, right? And then also something you might have not noticed is the latencies are much better. So back to my point about we put these platforms out, and it gives developers the ability to come up with new and interesting ways to do things for their customers. So we're super happy and proud to be working with Audi, so we can bring connectivity to their vehicles. And you hear all about all the tech that's going on inside of vehicles and autonomous driving and entertainment in them. And someday you just get in it and it drives you to wherever you want to go. Our platform, what you need to make that happen is you need those things I just talked about, the currencies we call them. You need the bandwidth. You need ubiquitous coverage. You need, latency characteristics. You need to be able to potentially do computing at the edge of the network so the car doesn't have to do so much computing and waste energy. So all these things we've been working and testing with a lot of partners, and we're super happy to be working with Audi. They have a great brand. They're cutting edge technology wise, and we're just super happy that they've decided to work with us on forwarding, advancing, what they can do for their customers. Frankly,
how much of your time do you get to spend like hanging out with the R&D people, seeing the next generation of technology? I mean, I know Audi's like a partner, but I'm assuming you have like an R&D department inside of Verizon.
Yes, we have a fairly large one. We have a lot of different labs throughout the United States that we work with partners on to bring, if they want to try something out, if they have a new business model or they have some new devices or they have some new software, we invite them into what we call our 5G labs. And depending on what vertical you're in, we actually have different labs. The one I was just at recently was we had over for the Super Bowl. We have a lab very close to where the Super Bowl was being played in LA. And that one's more of our kind of sports and video and entertainment lab. So we were showing off different CIOs from the teams and some other folks in technology what we have in that lab. And, one of the coolest ones, I think, is we've been working with the Suns, the Phoenix Suns, on using computer vision and AI ML to help their players understand kind of biomechanics and what's going on, how their bodies move and how they shoot at different times, and if they're tired, if they're not tired, all these kind of things to improve performance for athletes. And that's just one of them. We have a bunch of things with crowd control and, how do you apps on your phone so you can understand where the hot dog line has the least people in it. All these different things. So, and even entertainment inside the venue. So at the Super Bowl, if you were in the Super Bowl, part of your ticket, you could use our app and you could see 7 or 8 different camera angles on the field. So you could be watching the game, but you could also be looking at your phone and looking at different cameras throughout the field. And that's only because of our platform and all the bandwidth we're bringing in with millimeter wave and C-band and the like. Before, with just like an LTE or 3G, you couldn't even get your text out. So now you have all these capabilities and the point is, in these labs, this is where we do a lot of the R&D and working with partners to come up with cool things.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you get to go to the Super Bowl?
I did go in because we worked with the guys who built it early on to put our millimeter wave radios in there. So that Oculus thing, the big TV. Mm-hmm. So inside of there, we put our radios when it was on the ground. We put our Verizon wireless radios in there so millimeter wave could get throughout the whole bowl of the stadium. So we were working with those folks before they broke ground, and so we went out there to go check it out during its premiere event.
Dude, that is so cool. Was it fun?
Yeah, it was fun, but it's stressful too, right? So you got, we're a big partner of the NFL, and this is kind of their marquee event, and we wanted everything to go off without a hitch, and so I'm pretty happy once it's kind of over and people have left, and I know the system worked well.
Oh man, you're through my head's running like every product launch or every rollout. Like you're right, it's an event and you're there. It goes by fast, and you just pray that like everything goes really smoothly.
Well. But hey, you know what? We have the best engineers in the business, and it went off without a hitch. So, kudos go to all the engineers and technicians and everybody out in LA who did for us just a fantastic job, and great partnership with SoFi Stadium and those folks who built that. We really came up with a good design, and we were really able to show it off in SoFi Stadium. And we think this is going to be the norm, because if you pay you pay the prices you pay now for tickets to go to games, I think you need more than just getting your seat. And I think a lot of teams realize that, and they're starting to invest in technology and nothing like you'd see in SoFi. But I think over time you'll see more and more of the tech coming into the stadiums to give fans a better, more kind of a better experience than what they're used to in the modern day.
Yeah, so you said that they were using AI and ML on football player like movements.
Well, we've been doing it with the basketball leagues, but it's translatable to other sports for sure. Because it's interesting. You may not even notice. I don't know, Joel, if you play any sports or not, but how your body moves when you're tired is vastly different than when you're not tired. Oh, yeah. And your body moves differently. Even you don't think you're tired, but you're showing signs of it. So your body's not telling you you're tired yet, but you can tell through analytics that you're getting there because things are a little off. And that's the kind of, you can give that feedback to players instantaneously so they can feel it. That's a competitive advantage for them, not only for the team, but for them to get better. So I think these are the things you're going to start seeing, this merger of technology and sports, not only for entertainment for us as fans, but also for the players as well.
Oh, you're exactly right. So growing up, I did mostly baseball and then a little bit of football. Mm-hmm. And then as an adult, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So just kind of like a fighting type sport. Mm-hmm. And so you'll train to failure in those things, right? And so you get to watch yourself go from hey, I'm showing up. Hey guys, what's going on? To you can't you could barely move.
Right.
Yeah. And so to watch yourself degrade is interesting. I learned it too with working out to be more calm and breathe better, because if you're going, your brain sort of shuts down your decision making and you kind of get stupid and you can do too much weight and hurt yourself or something like that. So being able to sort of step outside and watch yourself, now that's a hard thing to do, right? I'd like to think I do it all the time, but it just happens sometimes. But to now be able to have this idea of being able to have technology that can monitor you or somehow give you some sort of insights so you know where you're at, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's next level stuff. So we're excited, but that's just an example of what we're trying to do and partner with others, right? Because like I said, we're just building the platforms, and then we partner with other people to try and bring these solutions to our partners. So it's exciting stuff for sure.
Did you know that in Formula One racing, they actually limit the amount of time that these teams are allowed to do simulations and such?
Yeah, probably. It's because you can probably get a competitive advantage depending on how much compute power you have. So
absolutely.
Well, here's I'm glad you brought Formula One up. So down, it's coming to Miami in May, down at by the Hard Rock Stadium there. So we've already we're in the midst of putting up all of our network to support the Formula One race that's going to be down there in May. So we're putting up the 5G millimeter wave and C-band, so you can get your UW on your phone when you're down there enjoying the race. So that'll be another good showcase of the technology that we're putting out there.
So what you did at the Super Bowl and what you're doing down in Miami, this is basically coming down to technology that relieves congestion?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to think about it. So, and then, think about, we live in kind of the app age. I mean, I've been doing apps forever, but you're limited to a certain extent about what the capabilities are on the device you're putting the app on, and then what the network can do, right? So we're trying to leapfrog all of that into the next generation, right? So that's when, I talk about the currencies and the bandwidth and the latencies, and then adding on to that what we call mobile edge compute. We're putting compute at the edge of the network instead of being far back in a local zone or something. Put it right at the edge of the network, and then having that interact with the device. So now you can do things that, developers can do things that they couldn't even imagine before. And that's the kind of thing that we're going after right now, to kind of leapfrog the technology way forward. So you could do things like I just talked about with the Suns and the performance. There's so many different applications for it, but we got to get the networks out there and get people starting to develop to it. And but we're just at the beginning, and I think we got a really bright future with these cool, neat things that are going to be coming.